I was one of the breakthrough cases, and so far so good. I'm about 80%. I'm back to running a little bit, and so far so good. So the bottom line is, if you're not vaccinated, get vaccinated. Even though I was vaccinated, I still contracted COVID, but the docs, several of the docs said I was in better shape with the vaccine than without the vaccine. I said, wait, I'm in the ICU. How, what do you mean? It could be worse. But
I'm sorry.
No, I had great care. The healthcare workers were overloaded. They were overworked, and they gave me great care. And they even had humor at times, which really helped the situation. So it was pretty good.
Good. I've seen you back.
Yeah, thanks.
Do you wonder how you got it?
You know, I mean, it's like, you know, we've all had the flu and the common cold, and where'd you get it from? I mean, even though there's contact tracing, and there's really no telling. I mean, you know, we couldn't figure it out, because I thought I contracted it on one date, but the doc said, no, I probably contracted it 2 days before that. And then, so it's trying to figure out, it's tough.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, glad you're on the mend.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. So, yes.
They're talking now, I'm not quite understanding it, but they're talking about you can either get a third shot or a booster.
They're both the
Where are
same
you?
thing.
Question mark.
Okay.
You should be on a Zoom meeting, period, with East Oak Park, period.
Okay.
Sam. Don, is there still a lot of people coming in, or? What do you
Sylvia just checked in. I don't know who, there's nobody else on board. She was the most recent one.
I just checked in.
Right, you were second to last, and now Sylvia's joined us. So might as well get started. It's, well, or what do you want to do? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
Wait a few more minutes, I would say.
We should have Charlie on too.
continued small
right?
talk.
I just texted Charlie to remind him.
Okay. He's probably in another meeting trying to get to us.
I know the cities, oh, actually, they were due today, weren't they, or yesterday? I was gonna say the bootification was happening, but the deadline was today or yesterday to enter. It always seems so early to me.
Yeah.
But
Maybe that's why there were people getting out earlier than we wanted to. They're like ready to go because they wanted to be in the contest.
I mean, who's not ready?
Okay, so Lester just joined us. Hi, Lester.
Hello.
It was good to see you at the cider event, cider and donuts.
I'll be at the next one.
Okay. Do we have a date for that? Is there something that we've
October
talked about
16th.
on, or no?
October 16th.
We talked
Yeah.
about next Saturday.
Yep.
We need to confirm that, right? That's
People
next
interested.
week.
Yeah.
Are we having a cornroll tournament?
People
You
would
don't-
be.
Yeah. Leslie wants to come by and try it out. She's
What we
willing.
don't know is probably Leslie was like captain of the cornhole team in college. Moonlights and all the professional
Trust me,
cornhole.
I
league.
wasn't.
Jeffrey, you have some sharp glasses on.
Thank you. They're new.
Well, I already have it on my calendar for the 16th. Already got it.
It sounds like we're doing an event.
Yeah. Now you have to.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
God, I need more.
Welcome to our meeting, Jim Nash. Here's Charlie. Here.
Glad to be here.
Yay.
Thank you.
Oh, there's Charlie.
Hey there.
Hey,
Apologies for being late.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I think we can start this, right? It's 7 after. People should be in time. That's not directed at anybody. Tonight, we have a few special guests. Kelsey, Cooke, is here. And Charlie is here to discuss water. Water everywhere. And before this, Sam has a plea for, is there anyone who'd be interested in taking minutes of the meeting?
What?
It's a fun, exciting job. You just get to write down general notes of what's happening and then send them to Sam so he can type them up. Or you type them up and we can disperse them. Everyone put your hands down. There's too many of you. Anyone? Please. I just know that Sam would appreciate the, we'd all appreciate just a little extra help too. If anyone wants to try this for tonight? No?
I guess it's me, Jeffrey.
Sam, you just do too good of a job. Think about it, everyone. If in your the heart of your hearts you think that maybe you'd enjoy being a secretary, like for an evening, maybe next month it could be you. And then there's a point about trying to improve attendance for the meeting. If anyone has any ideas, I know we kind of are encouraging everyone to talk to their neighbors, talk to their friends, talk to people who would be around. We'll have to get some signage up to in some spots. But I see that Zig has been very proactive in passing out. Are those stickers or are they business cards? What do you got there, Zig? You're muted, but
Labels?
These are little, like letter labels. So anybody that I know is not in our club yet. I put one of these sticky things on their white door, on their screen door. So, and it just has a pertinent information if they want to join our association and know what's happening in the neighborhood. So I put out maybe, I don't know, 15 to 20 or 30. I don't know how many, whatever's on a sheet like this. I'm going to do another street. I did all of my street where I live, Woodside Drive. So I have another sheet I'll do the whole Kemberton next time, and then I'll just work my way around the neighborhood, I guess.
you know you've made it when you've got a sticker from Zig on your door. So I appreciate everyone being here and joining us tonight. I know that we're still on Zoom, but it's probably easier at this point since I think the school doesn't want us in there yet. Then you can chime in from wherever you are too. I know I will be on the road, so I will probably be joining from afar if I can, which is exciting. That I'm excited to still be in touch with you all. Our guest speakers are here to discuss water and sewage infrastructure, a thrilling topic. But it seems like we've been having a lot of discussion about water because it is actually a very important topic. Charlie is here, who is the Oakland County Commissioner, and Kelsey, who is the title on the web. Kelsey, Attorney and Special Projects Manager, but you work with, where are you? There you are on the screen. Do you want to verify?
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Yep, I'm Kelsey Cooke, Attorney and Special Projects Manager. I work for Commissioner Jim Nash, our Water Resources Commissioner, and also with us this evening is Gary Nigro. He works for our office as well, and he's a professional engineer. He's our chief engineer, so he's going to be able to answer all of the technical questions that I would fall short answering and giving you the best advice and review on. So Gary, and between Gary, Jim, and I, we hope to be able to answer any questions that you have.
Yeah, we've got an entire team of people here. This is exciting. Sorry, I'm reading the agenda that Sam emailed Shall we dive into these questions? Did everyone read the agenda? Did everyone get the agenda email? Sam had sent some things out. I'm looking and seeing some heads nodding yes, no, yes. Okay. The first point on here says, my water bill has become my second most expensive utility. Combined internet and phone is number one. With our infrastructure needs, I see this expense only increasing. How can we invest in infrastructure today in order to reduce costs in the future?
Jeffrey, before we get into that, and forgive me if y'all already did this again, apologies for being a few minutes late. You ever try to do two things at once and you realize you can't? That happened to me at 7:02 tonight, so my bad. But could I give some space for our Water Resource Commissioner, Jim Nash, to give himself like kind of the 30,000 foot level, because he's really transformed what it means to be a Water Resource Commissioner, not just here in Oakland County, but, you know, he's nationally recognized and he kicks serious butt and he's very knowledgeable, and that's partly why he was able to grab people like Kelsey to be able to work for him. So before we really give him up for about water bills, is it okay if he kind of tells you how? Okay, thanks. Jim, is that all right with you?
Jim. Of course, happy to. I'm a politician. Okay, cool. That's all I do is talk. Right? Sure. You know, just real quick, because these guys are the experts. My office oversees the George W. Coon, which, you know, a lot of the costs that you go to your water bills is from operating and maintaining that. And also your sewage also goes to treatment down in Detroit. So it's split in several ways. And, you know, in the long term, we were looking at significant issues around rates because all the work that we need to get done. Luckily, and so far, you know, we haven't seen the influx of money, but there's significant state funding from the previous last Recovery Act bill, and there's, you know, the potential of, I always hate to say that, of the bills that are in DC now will be bringing in significant funding. So a lot of the issues that we need to take care of, hopefully, that kind of funding, that outside funding will play a significant role in, because the only other alternative is the ratepayers paying for what needs to be done. And I will say over the next 4 to 5 years, we're going to see some of the loans for the GWK come be paid in final due. So you'll see some rate, not necessarily rating drop, but the costs of running these systems will be reduced by because we won't be paying those loans anymore. We still need to do significant work. So a lot of that will go to working to do the work that we need to do to make sure these systems all work, both the GWK and then your internal systems that you operate and maintain. So, you know, going forward, we're hoping to get a significant amount of funding from the state and federal level to do these projects. A lot of communities are looking towards that. Plus, they already have their funding that they're looking to spend from the Recovery Act. But we're with the Michigan Municipal League, where we've been working with them to try to show the legislature and governor how we believe, communities believe that these funding dollars should be spent in specifically in water. And we're looking for about $2.5 billion in that. So hopefully we'll be able to tap into that as a county and then as local governments to do those improvements that we need to do. Climate change is making storms more intense, and we have to work in that direction in the long term. Hopefully some of that will be able to divert flow from going into the combined system in this area and then, you know, being infiltrated into the ground. So we're looking to work on that. We're looking to do work around these systems to make them more resilient to storms. And so that's the long term. And after that, I'm going to let Kelsey and Gary take that over, because they're here to talk, not me. So thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. I'm going to turn this question over to Gary, just for the technical side, but a lot of what Jim said goes to that question. So yeah, this is the water bill is an expensive bill that everyone pays, and you see all of the infrastructure work that needs to be done, or at least you hear about it. And so yeah, getting the funding from external sources, now is the time to do that. But a lot of the work that utilities do is just constantly trying to manage and plan for the future. And so that way the rates can at least stay constant or have small increases over time so that it's manageable. So that way money is saved up, budgeted to be able to do the capital improvement, make the improvements, make the repairs that your systems need. So our office operates and maintains about 15 different water and sewer systems across Oakland County. Oak Park is not one of those systems that we operate and maintain. So you have your local DPW department doing that for your local pipes in the grounds in front of your houses. But as Commissioner Nash said, you're in a combined system. So you're, with the sanitary sewer flow, the flow that goes down your toilet is the same pipe that, the rain from the sky falls into. And so because of that, it does come through our George W. Kuhn retention treatment facility. And so Gary can talk a little bit more about that and kind of the costs associated with that.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Guess I was already introduced. So my name is Gary Nigro, and I'm a chief engineer over the retention treatment basin unit, which, as Kelsey just mentioned, almost all of southeast Oakland County is in a combined system, which kind of makes it so that it's under my purview for what I'm responsible for operating. So, but also as she described, there's a whole network of combined drains that are owned and operated by Oakland County that go through all the 14 communities in southeast Oakland County, including Oak Park. So Oak Park is fully in a combined district. So also, as she mentioned, you have a local system, collection system that makes its way to the county collection system, which eventually makes its way to the Great Lakes Water Authority. It used to be called, Detroit Water and Sewer Department. And probably about 5 years ago now, the Great Lakes Water Authority was formed to give all of the customer communities, partners that contribute flow to Detroit system a say in what happens, in the whole regional system, if you will. So, so for instance, a good portion of your bill, and I guess somebody chime in for a second. Is your water bill have a sewage component to it?
Yes.
Or okay,
Yes.
that's the way most communities are. So that portion of the bill, obviously, Oak Park has to maintain their infrastructure and all their sanitary sewage collection system in order to get that flow from your homes into the county system. From there, the county system, we have our own infrastructure and pipe network that has to get flow to Great Lakes Water Authority system. Then Great Lakes Water Authority has a larger system, as you can imagine. It's collecting, right? Just like a stream would. Smaller tributaries are turning into rivers of combined sewage, if you will. And eventually has to get to their wastewater treatment plant. So, for instance, the great majority of our whole district's cost is actually sewage disposal from Great Lakes Water Authority. So, and I'm shooting from the hip here, but I want to say it's about roughly $50 million a year in sewage disposal fees for southeast Oakland County. So then, we take that bill that's passed on to the county, we add on the costs, operational costs for our equipment and our staff, and then that bill gets passed on to the communities such as Oak Park, and all the others surrounding you, Royal Oak and Pleasant Ridge and all those. And what happens after that, I don't see how they bill the individual customers, because like we said, it comes out in the water bill. And I think, are you guys in SACWA's water bill system too? Like, is it the Southeast Oakland County Water Authority that provides water to Oak Park? I think it is, but maybe you just see a bill directly from Oak Park, I think so. Okay. All right. So yeah, as far as costs, I think Jim mentioned also, each one of these systems are, doing their best to operate and maintain the system in order to keep the flow moving, if you will. So, and also, as mentioned, there's a lot of federal dollars out there right now. So I know I spoke with someone from Great Lakes Water Authority a couple of weeks ago and said they were aggressively going after some large federal grants to try to use that money in order to help offset some of the costs in their system, because not to bad mouth anyone, but it was not in good repair under Detroit, and the Great Lakes Water Authority has made great strides, but there's a lot that needs to be done in order to bring that up to standards that I think a level of service that all the customers would be hoping to see. So,
Gary, could I interject for a sec, just because you were talking about the quality of just the stuff underground? I was talking, this isn't a thing that I've heard from our city manager in Oak Park, but in Hazel Park, they found a wooden pipe like a year ago. So that's just in terms of what Gary's talking to you about with this 30,000 foot view and Great Lakes Water Authority, former DWSD and all that. It's like that, when they were figuring out how to get telephone wires to be strung up, they also put in, water lines in some places, and that's about the last time they checked it. So just for some perspective there, not to interrupt you too much, Gary, but yeah.
I actually have a piece of that in my garage. I should have grabbed it. Maybe if I get a break in the talking, I'll go and grab it. It's pretty cool. It's a piece of, I think that one was actually a water main, but it might have been sewer.
Okay.
Yeah. So these things would have went in the ground like 100 years ago, the wood ones, and some of them are still working today. So it's pretty impressive, to be honest. So, yeah. So ultimately, it's from a house level, plumbing in your house, to the city level, to the county level, to the regional level, the Great Lakes Water Authority. So there's, if you can imagine, the amount of work that has to go on to keep the flow moving, if you will. So I know a lot of times that people ask me if I'm just meeting somebody new, and I say I'm a civil engineer, and they kind of cock their head maybe and go like, "What is that?" And my quick humorous answer, I guess, is: did you ever wonder what happens after you flush the toilet, or when you turn the faucet and water comes out? You ever wonder what happens? And they're like, "No." I was like, "That's my job."
So, did you have a question?
What was your question?
Yeah. Anyways, the stormwater runoff is $32. That's like the largest part. And that's just the clean water from the rain. And this is a monthly bill. So $32 is the monthly bill for the water coming out of the sky. How can that be justified?
Zig, just a point of order before there's responses. Jeffrey, is it okay if I just kind of keep chiming in? Okay. So there's a water bill town hall Monday night at City Hall in Oak Park that the city manager and DPW director talked about the stormwater thing. And I'm going to get it wrong, and I saw Kelsey jumping at her mouse. So Kelsey will probably know this better, because there was a lawsuit that I think it was a class action that then, take it away, Kelsey.
Yeah, so you do pay for your storm water, because it does, even though it falls from the sky and you can control it, it does go into the same system that your sanitary sewer goes into to be treated, and kind of flows through the same pipe. So the city of Oak Park, I'm assuming based that on just how much, what would have been based on, Gary? There was definitely a lawsuit, and it was settled though. And so now if you see the charges on your bill, they should be charging you a different way. And it's based on probably the impervious area, how much you actually contribute to the system, versus just how much water you're using or how much water is exiting your home, and a charge based on that.
And to piggyback off you, Kelsey, there in Oak Park at the Water Town Hall, they were saying, that jogged my memory, the city of Oak Park and places all over the state have done this too, in light of the class action lawsuit being settled, is I think part of the settlement cost was hiring drones to then do geospatial mapping. So, for example, Dawn, you live on a corner lot, so yours might be $40 a month, and Ziggy, you live in the middle of the street, might be $32 because you've got less frontage and less walk to shovel when it snows. So that's where that number comes from.
Also, I thought that there was always what the class action did was kind of make things more transparent. Like the charges were kind of all the same, but it just kind of dispersed them differently. Maybe I'm wrong in this, but that was part of my understanding, was like we were always responsible for some of this stormwater runoff. It's just now you're actually seeing it separated from like a larger chunk. Is that right? I think it's right. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I've sat through 3 meetings about water and should know everything about it.
Most of the lawsuits were around communities were using general funds or just putting it on the water bill, and it wasn't related to anything. So the way the law was set up and judicial decisions, it made it very difficult to. They said that you couldn't do it that way. You had to do it in a way that was related directly to how much of the system you use, which is that you said, depending on the size of your property and how much impervious surfaces there are on it. So doing it this way allows it to be done so everybody, in theory, you're paying for what you're using because the runoff off your property is bringing in the pollutants and the cost of treating it. But this way you're paying for what you, and if you reduce the flow off your property, if you find ways to put in to limit what comes off your property, you should be able to get to pay less for that. So I'm not sure exactly how you did it in your community, but mostly it was because it was not being done from a constitutionally proper way.
And that's also how cities, especially entering suburbs before all this, if I'm getting it right, again, Jim and Kelsey and Gary, tell me if I'm wrong, but that my understanding of it is, especially entering suburbs, this happened with local courts. So like the district court would be a revenue generating thing for the municipality. And then water would also be a revenue generating thing, because you kind of tack on a little bit and say, Detroit, they charge us extra. And that was a way to then be less transparent and kind of hide a surcharge to then be able to plug budget holes, like what has happened with some district courts with, giving people tickets that, other people don't necessarily get. And then if you looked at the budget, you go, that's interesting that how that money lines up. But both of those things now don't happen like they used to.
Right. Well, they're called enterprise funds, and they can only be used for the enterprise. They can't be used for anything else. Detroit got in serious trouble about that back when I was a county commissioner, because they siphoned it off for police radios. And they had to pay it all back. And it was because it's flatly illegal to use the money for anything other than the enterprise itself.
That's why, not to digress from water, but in what still can happen now in some communities, not saying it happens in Oak Park, but what can happen is if you see, the district court was able to generate $2.3607 million in revenue, and it cost $2.3607 million in revenue. Like Jim was saying, it's an enterprise fund, so you can't make money off of something because you're making money off of giving people tickets and fines. So then you kind of fudge the budget a little bit. And that's what was happening with the water is, we got to give you this surcharge because Detroit. So, but they don't do that anymore because of the lawsuit.
Yeah, and just for one point of clarity there. So when the county system was designed, it actually was designed for all the way down to the lot level by by calculating the amount of runoff, as Jim was kind of describing, that would leave any particular site. So obviously if you had a 5-acre parking lot, and a 5 acre soccer field, soccer field's going to have a lot less runoff because it's grass, right? So in that sense, 1 minute, just. Okay. So obviously the soccer field would have a lot less runoff. So in calculating the apportionment of the overall project, all right, for the county system, they would use calculate the amount that each community would contribute to the overall collection system. So every community of the 14 communities I mentioned have a piece of the overall, pie, I guess you would say. So that's how we distribute the charges that both GLWA charge us for sewage disposal, as well as our own costs get distributed out to the communities. But then the communities, and don't go beat up Oak Park because none of them did it. None of them, from that point farther down to the residents, they didn't go down to the residential lot level. They just went, this is part of the fee that the county gives us. And so it's a lot simpler just to say, we all owe something into this. And so charge a surcharge, for the sewage collection and disposal. But as described by Jim a minute ago, there's now if you see things all the way down to the lot level, the amount of runoff that's leaving individual lots, that's how you should be charged. So you're still going to be charged for it, probably the same amount plus or minus a little bit depending on your own piece of property, but in the end it should all equal. It's just that the lawsuits said the way you're charging it's unfair. It wasn't the amount that you're charging it was unfair, it's the way you're charging it. Does that make sense? And Kelsey, stop me if I'm saying that wrong.
No, that's right. The charges just have to be proportional to the service that you're receiving. So the amount of stormwater runoff that's coming from your property into the system, that's what you need to be charged for, rather than everybody being charged the same amount. So essentially that's what it is. And Oak Park's not alone. I mean, gosh, there's been like 30 communities that have been sued over the same thing across Michigan. There's, frankly, there's one law firm that goes around and looks at every community to see how they're doing it. And if they're doing it, without basing it on impervious area, and they're getting sued. And so, there's some class action attorneys out there that are making a lot of money off of the local governments, unfortunately. But a lot of communities now are, kind of learning from, the case law that's come up, like Oak Park's case, Madison Heights case, Birmingham, Royal Oak, all of those communities have had the same lawsuits. And so they're able to kind of restructure their stormwater fee now and at least try to help the situation. So yeah, Gary's right. You'll see it on the bill. It is a cost that is incurred that needs to be passed to the residents. It just has to be passed on to the residents in a proportional way. So that way it's constitutional.
So Ziggy, can I ask you, does it feel better to know that you're getting shafted, or did you like it when you didn't know you're getting shafted?
No, I want to hear someone say, what? More biggest bill on your thing is that big? We're going to do something about it. That's what I want to hear. I want to hear that. I want to hear a solution.
Oh, I can give you a couple of those from a county commission perspective, and I know Jim's been, like he was talking about his lobbying efforts, he's been hawking some good ideas. And also in conjunction, or maybe the Sierra Club kind of stole his talking points, but the Sierra Club is also trying to whip votes for ideas to make water more affordable. And also, do you all know about the People's Water Board?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they're an advocacy group that talks about, this is a thing that, again, since we got the experts on, I'm weary to say all the wrong stats, but is it the EPA or the World Health Organization says the cost of water should not be greater than 4.5% of your income in an ideal situation, right? The way that we calculate poverty is if you spend 30% of your income on housing or more, you're housing poor. If you spend more than 4.5% of your income on water, then that's, an inordinate burden on you. So anyways, that's what the People's Water Board folks talk about.
There's a question from Sean that also kind of ties in with the second question that was asked on this agenda. Sean's asking about there just was new drain construction, water main things happening at Coolidge and Oak Park Boulevard, and they're asking like, is global warming being taken into consideration? Are things different now in the fact like every time it's rained this past year, it felt like it's flooded. Everything's been a weather event, it seems like, this summer. The question that was asked here on the agenda says, what infrastructure improvements have occurred in response to the flooding that took place in 2014, which was like that last huge flooding? So it's kind of like the same question, kind of, I guess, if anyone would like to respond to that.
I-75, they put a new drainage system in so that the expressway won't flood. That's why we're not flooding on those torrential rains and backing up the sewers in our basement.
Well, I could talk about that if you'd like to know more about that system and how that works. As far as the one by Oak Park and Coolidge, I don't believe that was a county project. There might have been something on the local level.
That's water line replacement.
An actual water main?
Yeah, they put new pipes in for the water main.
I do know what you're talking about now. Yeah, so that's an actual drinking water main. That was performed by SACWA. That's the Southeast Oakland County Water Authority. Like I said, I believe that they provide the water for a good number of the communities in Southeast Oakland County. So they would be a direct customer to Great Lakes Water Authority, providing water up to that system, and then SACWA provides it out to all the individual communities who need drinking water, right? So a drinking water, main that would have nothing at all to do with stormwater collection or things like that. But I guess more generally, any project that's built by public works offices and civil engineers is pretty much always designed and constructed to whatever the current standard is, plus some room for growth. Now Southeast Oakland County, it's pretty well developed out, so you're not necessarily going to have a bunch of new developments going in, turning a farm field into a parking lot, because it's pretty much developed out already and has been since 50s and 60s probably. But I feel like there was another point I was going to try to make, but I'll stop for now.
Well, one thing too, to what I think also speak to what you were asking, Lester, or one of just an interesting factoid that I heard is there's a cistern that the WRC has that's like 100 million gallons. And I don't think this was the I-75 one, but in the August 2017 floods, that took 3 days to fill up, and then all the flooding happened. Or that was a component of what led to the flooding being so damaging. We had recent rains, I think also in August, and that 100 million gallon cistern filled up in 11 minutes or 18 minutes. Am I getting this right? Dave Woodward told me this, so I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but.
Well, Dave probably heard that from me.
There you go, Gary. Okay, so what's the real numbers? But it's just like, whoa, these storms are getting worse, yes, and they're getting way worse, way quick.
Yeah. So what you're referring to is called the George W. Kuhn Retention Treatment Basin. All right, and it's a 120 million gallon retention treatment basin.
And that's where our water goes in Oak Park.
Yes, and it's not a cistern, and what it is, it's actually a pollution control facility. So if you can imagine, and I can get long-winded in this, but I'll try not to. Back in the day, nobody ever really wanted or planned for a combined sewer system. All right, but just through the sins of our grandfathers, we ended up with one. Okay, so if you can imagine, back in the 30s and 40s, there were a lot of outhouses out there still. I know my own parents grew up right in the southeast Oakland County. My dad was in Warren, my mom was in Royal Oak, right in that area. And my father grew up with an outhouse, you know, so around that same time in the 30s and 40s, that's how you use the bathroom. So as indoor plumbing became more prevalent, everyone wanted indoor plumbing, right? So you plumb it into your house, but then that sewage still had to go somewhere, your waste. So it went out into a septic tank. You know, you heard the stories of the honey dippers. They'd go by and they'd take all the solids out of the tanks and stuff like that. But because lots in southeast Oakland County are so small, none of them had drainage fields, you know, where a conventional wastewater drain field system properly designed like you would have on more rural lots, right? Out in the suburbs and out in the country and stuff. So what would happen is the solids would be collected in the tank, but the liquids that would flow off the top of the tank, they had to go someplace. So they'd flow into the road ditch out front, right in between your house and the road, or in alleys, things like that. Well, you know, back in the 30s and 40s, the residents were like, hey, this is disgusting. What are we going to do about it? So they were like, oh, problem solved. I know, let's just enclose the ditch. Now I don't have to see or smell that. My kids aren't going to be falling in sewage and things like that. So you can close the ditch down to the next point, just out of your neighborhood. And you're like, yeah, problem solved. And then the next neighborhood goes, hey, this is disgusting. And you keep pushing it farther and farther downstream until the building enclosing these road drains, road ditches. Now you're creating a combined sewage system. It still has to convey the storm drainage when you have a rain event, but now it's also conveying sanitary sewage also. So at some point you push it far enough to a big lake or river and you go, oh, there we go, now it's gone. Well, no, then the state of Michigan comes in and says, you can't do this. This is disgusting. Every time it rains, sewage goes straight out into the lakes and rivers and streams. So back in the 1960s, Oakland County built this retention treatment basin to make it so that rather than have all the flow just go straight through into the Red Run Drain, which goes to the Clinton River, which goes to Lake St. Clair, which goes down to Detroit River. So if you really want to be horrified, that's where the water intakes are at, your drinking water. But that's treated very differently. So anyway, we built this basin and we capture that combined sewage, right? The basin fills up instead of it flowing straight to the drains. After the rain events subside, we turn on the pump stations, we dewater the basin, which goes straight back into the collection system on its way down to Detroit to its actual treatment plant. In the events that you have a rain event that's too large to capture, the flow passes straight through the facility in one side and back out the other over a series of dams. And we screen it. There's been a lot. I'm trying to shorten my hour-long speech about the basin. So the most recent improvements that Jim mentioned that the bonds are just about to expire on, which is a good thing. They were done about 15 years ago. Added screening, settling, disinfection. We add sodium hypochlorite to the flow to disinfect it. In the event that we can't capture the entire event, it passes through the facility, gets disinfected and cleaned, and then falls out the other side into the Red Run on its way out in the environment. But by that point, any fecal bacteria has been killed, disinfected. So the talk about how quickly it fills, I don't know if it's ever taken 3 days to fill up. When you have a significant rain event, it usually fills up in under an hour, maybe a few hours if it's raining kind of a medium to light rain. But in some of these recent rain events, it's not. I mean, it's typical for the basin to fill in 20 to 30 minutes.
And how big are other retention tanks? right? 100 million gallons sounds like a lot. Is that actually a lot, or do a lot of other places have bigger tanks?
100, yeah, I think it's 124 million gallons, and it is the largest one in North America. So it's bigger by a lot.
So you didn't think climate change was real? Boy, that tells you something, right?
Yeah. Like for instance, the three similar basins we have on the to the west in Oakland County are 4 million, 5 million, and 10 million gallon basins. So they're significantly smaller. And then there's probably about 23 of these facilities in southeast Michigan. Some operated by Macomb County, some by Dearborn. Great Lakes Water Authority has several. We have by far the biggest one. So I kind of rambled on for a while, but that's what that facility is for. It's actually to prevent that combined sewage from flowing straight out into lakes, rivers, and streams by collecting as much solids and debris as we can and disinfecting the flow before it enters the environment. So it's a combined overflow retention treatment facility. So it's been around since the 70s. I think 71 is when it was complete. 72 maybe is when it was completed, but it has a very good track record with the state of Michigan. The DEQ, or now they're called Eagle, are state regulators, and they set all the permit requirements for what we have to hit. Because we have to be able to chlorinate enough to kill the fecal bacteria and E. coli, and not so much that the chlorine itself damages the environment. So it's kind of a balancing act there. So especially when the storms can be so dynamic, unlike a wastewater treatment plant where you have like usually a very steady flow, which goes up a little bit during rain events. This goes from 0 to 7,000 cubic feet per second of flow.
So keeping global warming and all of like the environment changing right now, are there plans to prevent more flooding? Are there things that y'all have in the works to keep things drier for us? Or the next question on here is asking like what plans exist for the future. So I'm trying to spin this and like say what are we doing? I mean, is there anything news to report on that?
Well, there's basically three main ways that you could help yourself, or things that could be done. Okay, so you have a collection system that's sized for a certain size to convey usually you hear the term a 10-year rain event, plus or minus somewhere around there. Theoretically, an event that should occur once every 10 years statistically.
Yeah, every week in August, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Statistically. So it's sized to convey a certain amount of flow. All right. So one of the things you can do is increase the capacity of the overall system so they can convey a lot more flow. All right. That's one thing that could be done. That's typically called gray infrastructure. It's meant to be like concrete. You're building a bunch of large structures, and then you have to do something to maintain those. I know one person was talking about bills. What are we doing to lower the bills? Well, I'm going to give you some perspective here because somebody else brought up the MDOT pumps, the MDOT project going on out there. MDOT is building a storage tunnel under I-75 from 8 Mile Road up to 12 Mile Road. And that's the direction it'll flow. It's 14.5 feet in diameter. It'll be about 25 million gallons of storage, all right, with a pump station at the end to dewater it. Take that flow, lift it out of this tunnel, put it back into the storm collection system, which we operate. That project is designed to convey a 100-year rain event, capture or convey a 100-year rain event to try to keep, that stretch of highway from flooding. That project cost a little over $200 million. All All right. $200 million. And it is about 3% of the collection system for the whole district in Southeast Oakland County.
And Gary, to interrupt you, the county commission, the Oakland County government, secures $246 million every year from everyone's property taxes. So this is basically all the property taxes from all of Oakland County residents for county government. So next time you look at your taxes, that is up to $246-ish million a year. And that's 3% of the water needs, like Gary's saying, for just that 4-mile pipe.
Yeah. So they're designing it to a 100-year rain event. So everyone, because I think, Jeff, you asked the question about the August 2014 rain event. That was classified as over a 300-year rain event. So they're about to invest $200 million. And at that rain event, the highway would still be flooded underwater. So you see what I'm saying? So that is one way. Okay. You can build big, giant, very expensive infrastructure. Everyone's water and sewer bills will go up significantly. And then you can convey bigger storms up to some size storm. At some point, there'll always be a bigger storm, right? That's one way. 2 ways. So that's convey more. Second way, use the current system less. And I'll explain what I mean by that. You try to reduce the amount of runoff that goes into the system. And you can do that by things like detention, local detention systems. You can infiltrate it. That's a big thing that we've been pushing. I know Jim Nash has been a big proponent ever since he's taken office for green infrastructure. A lot of times it's just abbreviated to GI, green infrastructure. So the idea being that if you can infiltrate a lot of that storm flow rather than it running off into the collection system and us having to treat it at the county or conveying it down to Detroit, where you have to pay for that to be treated as actual sewage, don't let as much rain into the system. And there's a million things that can be done down to the small, the local level. Even things like rain barrels and like rain gardens, pervious pavement. So rather than it running off, it can just soak through the pavement and go back into the ground. Things of that nature. So you can convey more or use it less. And the third one would be protect your own basement from just the water backing up into it. And that would be something like a backwater valve, like a backflow preventer installed in your own basements to keep the system that does go up from coming back into your own basement and causing damage. That's something that privately individuals can do and install. I know a woman in Clawson that last September, not this past one, the one before that, there was a big rain event there, September 25th, and she had previous ones that flooded her basement, and so she went out and put in a backflow preventer, had one installed in her house, in her basement, hired a professional plumber to do that. And some of these past storms this summer, I was calling her saying, "Julia, how'd you do?" And she's like, "I'm good." I'm like, awesome. So she's my poster child now for like, you see what happens, you can do it. You can protect yourself, people. So but those are basically the three ways to really protect yourself and keep yourself from flooding. Now obviously the first two, I just glossed over all the different ways that could be done: convey more or use the system less. Yeah, I tend to ramble, so I'll stop for a second.
Cheryl is asking, and I don't know if anyone knows the answer to this. How much does the city of Oak Park pay the Great Lakes Water Authority for each gallon of water? Do we know that? Is that public knowledge? I thought I had something like that in my notes, but I don't see it.
Yeah, that's something that could be calculated, determined. Off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you. So, I just don't know the answer to that.
You guys get your water through the South Oakland Water Authority, so they contract for, what is it, 12 or 14 communities, and that way you're paying less a wholesale rate than communities that generally contract themselves, because it's just, you know, you're getting discount because of the much more usage. So that's a way that it's done for you guys, and the other communities of the South Oakland Water Authority.
And sorry, Gary, just a quick thing about Oak Park in particular. This year, Oak Park did not raise water rates, even though the co-op consortium that Oak Park is a part of and GLEWA did raise rates. So part of your city taxes that you already pay that fund the city of Oak Park government are earmarked and dedicated towards filling in that gap so that your bill doesn't go up, FYI. So, you know, what I'm saying is Oak Park's still got to pay because City of Oak Park's kind of like the middleman, but you're not paying it. I mean, other than your taxes. But what that means is you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, right? Do you hire a new police officer because the public safety department needs 4 more officers? Or do you make sure your water rates don't go up for a year so then you don't have to pay that on your bill because Oak Park is eating that for you?
Sylvia, did you have a question? You're waving.
Yes, I did. So yes or no, is the city of Oak Park going to join whomever and get us some new pipes so our basements won't flood? That's a simple question.
Simple question, Sylvia, but boy, oh boy, that's a big answer, and the short answer is yes, if. So the if is on a federal level, and everyone on here that's a water expert, tell me what I'm getting wrong in terms of numbers or data, but if the American Infrastructure Plan passes the federal government, there'll be billions of dollars that'll go towards helping with improving water and sewer. If the state of Michigan adds money through its American Rescue Plan relief dollars to help with, like, the fund that we all worked on, Kelsey, the state revolving fund to get Royal Oak Township some water money. If that revolving fund gets bolstered or gets more money added to it, then yes. And if the county passes this $2 million water sewer infrastructure planning resolution that's currently in committee, that'll be passed on October 12th, then that'll help do some of the planning to then, by the city of Oak Park, so the county resolution will help the city of Oak Park get a grant to do some of the planning, to then ask the state for a loan, if the loan fund is bolstered, to then use some of that money from the federal government if that federal bill is passed.
So it'll be years before this happens.
Well, it'll either be like 6 months before all the yeses happen, and then another like 5 or 10 years, right, Gary and Kelsey and Jim? Like the yeses will happen in the next 6 months if the yeses happen. If they don't happen, then we're screwed for the next generation.
We're screwed. Okay, that's all I need to know.
Yep.
Probably going to end up with less money.
Some of the communities, I'm not sure again about Oak Park. I think you guys got some of that SAW money, which was sewer asset management and wastewater, to do analysis of the conditions of your pipes. So these are the pipes that come along the street that end up coming to our pipes, our much bigger pipes that do the collections. So I'm not sure. Some communities got to do a significant part of their piping to kind of, do the closed circuit TV kind of inspections to see what the conditions are. And generally what you're going to do is you're going to measure the conditions of the pipes. The ones that are the worst condition are the ones that are going to get the first repair jobs done. So any particular pipes are having significant issues, in theory, those are the first ones that are going to get worked on. Then you work backwards to the least of problem pipes that have the least, problems if there's a failure. So they're going to look at the pipes that need it first and go for them. So as we develop these programs, hopefully the ones that are going to need the most work will be the ones that will be done in the first couple of years, and then we'll be working backwards from there.
It's interesting because at every meeting I've gone to, they basically keep on like hammering home that basically 70% of our water mains need repair. They're all in pretty terrible condition. 72 of 102 miles worth of piping. So
There's
right. There's things you can do for streets, like you can put restrictors on the storm drains, so much less water gets into that drain, and they collect in the street, the water will, but at least it's not overflowing. I mean, going into the storm drains that can potentially back up. So, I mean, those kind of things, directing water to other places, like Gary mentioned, backflow preventers. We're looking at a grant to potentially see if we can do a program of those. Whenever you're looking for flooding issues, you're going to look at the low-lying properties are the ones that are going to be the first to be flooded. So if we can kind of design things to those low-lying properties that would limit the exposure to backups, that's how you're going to kind of control it long-term. So there's a lot of different ways of approaching green infrastructure, of approaching these, limits to how much gets into those systems. And that's really, I think, the bigger answer for this. But again, the investments costs of going into these large gray infrastructure programs is just massive. And there's always going to be a bigger storm. If you're looking to make it so water can flow to certain places to collect, even the bigger storms will have less impact if you're doing it that way rather than letting it into those systems. And one thing I want to mention too, 3 years ago, we got a grant from SEMCOG, and all 14 of the communities in the GWK, including Oak Park, participated in a program looking at all the ordinances of each community to see where we can make it easier to use green infrastructure, make it easier to plan these, where to put storage in these systems, and for property owners to do that. Even simple things like traditionally, for every building you had to have, for every square foot of that building, you had to have a certain amount of parking spaces. And history has shown it that 50%, 80% of the time, you don't use nearly all those spaces. And there's potential, if you have a special thing, you can help your neighbor's parking lot. You can use their parking lot. And so if the less parking areas we have, the less impervious places we have for that water to be run off into the systems. So just doing those kind of things, improving parking lots with, permeable pavement and shrinking the size of parking lots really helps.
And to Jeffrey, what you were saying, I took this from I hope you all can see it, from the
PowerPoint.
Watertown Hall. Yeah, so this is from the DPW. 70% of water mains are in need of repair. 60% of sewer lines are in need of repair. That's 72 miles and 68 miles respectively. And as Gary was saying, 4 miles cost $200 million. Now that's not how much they all cost, but it's not $10. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is just the $2 million I referred to, Sylvia, who was taking a bathroom break. But when Sylvia said, "Are you going to fix it or not? And what are you going to do that?" The $2 million that the county is putting forward to help communities plan for how they would spend state and federal dollars when it comes to them. That's a novel thing that also, I'll just say, your county commissioner is the sponsor of and the lead author of. And a lot of big help and credit goes to Kelsey, who typed some of the words of that resolution, and also Jim, because he hired Kelsey and is the thought leader on this. So just to say that, I know we're saying it doesn't look that great, but everyone knows how bad it looks, and we're all trying to figure out how to find $3 billion to make it work. So for our part, we found $2 million of the $3 billion we need. We just need your help with the other 2.98.
And we try to come up with. We'd love to come up with more creative solutions where people can, help to protect themselves, because just again the perspective. So that was just the pump station tunnel I mentioned at MDOT. The overall project for that same stretch of highway is actually $1.4 billion, significantly more. And in that tunnel boring machine, they chose that going. You don't see it happening because it's 80 feet underground right now, and it's not an easy operation to do. As a matter of fact, it is currently stuck, and they have to retrieve it. It's it's right under Forest and Farnham Avenues on the northbound service lanes, and it hasn't moved in about 3 months. So it's a big operation to go and repair that and get it moving again. So
Gary, if I could, another thing that made me think of is also, I know what you're hearing is that it's all bad news, especially because Gary just said some super expensive piece of machinery has been sitting idle for months. Gary, you know this is recorded, right? Boy, oh boy. But the good news is also that Oak Park, just to say, is the only city, right, Kelsey? That's the only city that got rid of its lead lines. So this is another thing that just talks about kind of the wonky politics of it. Is when Flint happened, and please someone like wave your hands if you already know this story, because I don't mean to bore you with the political minutia, but when except Jim, because Jim was a part of this story, so on the good side of things. But when the Flint water crisis happened, the state government said everyone has to, in every city in the state, has to do lead line testing, because one, cities don't actually know what lead lines they have. So currently I am working with the county executive on figuring out how to pay for lead line testing throughout Oakland County, just so we can actually get the number. Because, for example, in Ferndale, they say out of the 11,000 pipes that go to people's houses, right, there are 11,000 domiciles in Ferndale, 11,000 pipes that go from the street to your house. They think that 3,000 have lead in them, and they don't know about 5,000 others. And then they have the answer for the remainder that don't have lead. So there's just this whole, we don't know where lead lines are. And so the state, after the Flint water crisis, said everyone's got to replace lead lines, but we're not going to help you pay for it. So then all of a sudden, cities like Oak Park had to figure out how to spend between $4,000 to $6,000 per lead line per house that had lead, using your city taxes without getting any grants or assistance from the state to do that. And Oak Park and you have 20 years to do that, right? Because the state knew, hey, we're not going to pay for it. We're going to give you some time to figure out how to pay for this, get a bond or something, borrow the money. But Oak Park actually just did it all in one fell swoop, just FYI. So Oak Park is the only place that I'm aware of that did that. Not Ferndale, not Southfield, nobody else, but y'all did in Oak Park. So that's just also a good thing that people are trying to take care of your water.
Yeah. Wait, Pat, did you have a question? Pat's hand is raised. Pat, you're muted.
Somebody trying to talk?
Yeah.
I have a question about a couple minutes ago. You were talking about the that we need more. We don't have enough parking areas and parking spaces. And I don't know how to put this very in a way that I'm not insulting anybody, because I don't mean to do that, because I have wonderful neighbors and I love everybody near me. But I'm the only person on my block. I'm senior, I live by myself, and I'm the only person.
As if this meeting was not going badly enough, you call on Pat, period.
Are you saying that things are worse? I'm making it worse. Hello? Hello?
Pat?
I'm the only person on the block who has one vehicle. And I know that most of them are couples or families, so it's obvious that they may need to have a vehicle for each person, each adult. But there are people on my block, which is a very short block, who have more vehicles than that. And and most of us don't have garages, or a few have garages, but they don't use them as garages. They use them for other kinds of storage, and then everybody's vehicle is outside. If we are so short on parking spaces, what are we going to do if everybody's got all these multiple vehicles?
No, I was referring to for buildings, for commercial properties, things like that.
Just commercial?
Yeah, not for residential parking.
I see.
But residential parking, it's one of those things like they mentioned when you're looking at the properties, you're looking at what impervious surfaces there are. That includes, the driveway, the roof,
Right.
parking lot, anything like that. So, that's that all those shed water, but particularly offices and stores. There's often way more parking than there is need, and it's often it sheds water, a lot of water. It sheds all the water. Anything that lands on it goes right into the nearest storm drain. There are things you can do in parking lots. You can use pervious pavement around the edges. You can put instead of humps in the middle with a tree, you have a depression in the middle, and the water can collect there and go into the ground, but instead of going into a storm drain. There's lots of things you can do for parking lots that exist that you can make them much more friendly to stormwater.
Yeah, what Jim was referring to also is that this ordinance audit, it was really a way to through this grant, look at everybody's community zoning and building ordinances and see if there are roadblocks to creating more infiltration. And I'll give you two quick examples. Sometimes the number of parking spaces required by our building are based on the square footage of the building in the ordinance. So in a past life, I did a radio station up in Saginaw, and the footprint of the building made it so the place needed 56 parking spaces by that particular community's ordinance. And the radio station came to me, and like they were my client, right? I was the designer. They're like, we have 4 employees. And I was like, it's a township rule. You got to put in a parking lot for 56 cars. I have no way to get around this. That would be one example of like going, if you're building the building, don't, right. So that's one example. Another one would be to maybe the local community could do things to actually incentivize shared parking. Let's say you had a parking lot and there's a business next door. Maybe they share the spaces and through some sort of incentive. I don't know, but rather than just build everything out with pavement, have a big concrete jungle and then it's all runoff. But the switchback topics is something I was trying to say a second ago, is where I was going down the road of the complexity of that station. And Charlie, I can talk bad about that one because it's not our project. That's MDOT. But anyway, just for some more perspective, in order to pull off a project with that size of infrastructure, back in the 50s, the same community that you live in came together and said, we want to create a relief drain system because they were experiencing frequent flooding. And that's when the 12 towns drains were created. All right. It was a relief drain system. And they were all created, even though it was well known that everybody very frequently flooded back then. It was a needed thing. It still took almost 10 years for all of the communities to stop suing each other. There was lawsuit after lawsuit and all. I mean, you can read these news articles from back in the day. Everyone was at each other like, oh, no, that community puts more flow through than we do. We shouldn't have to pay as much as this community. It took 10 years before they're able to pull that project off. And then the amount of disturbance, the size of these things going through neighborhoods and condemning houses and ripping whole highways out to put these systems in. And that's the reason why MDOT chose to very expensively use this tunnel boring machine to go under the earth without having to disrupt everything on the surface. It's a risky and expensive way to do it, but they did it to try to avoid creating even a bigger headache because everyone's already after the highway systems enough for going like, you're fixing the road again, and it just motorists, everybody drives, right? So it's a big complicated project.
Mess. It's a mess.
The last question. Oh, Don, you're waving your hand. You're muted.
I was just saying, let me unmute myself. I just wanted to make a comment that if we had passed mass transit, I wonder how much more of the earth we would have to pave because we wouldn't have to have so many cars. We could have less road space with runoff. All that highway construction from Square Lake on I-75 to 8 Mile, it's just a cement carnival. I'm conflicted with it. And I feel as though if we had mass transit, we probably wouldn't have to pave the earth. That's just my comment.
The last question that was put forth was asking about our infrastructure, how it spans multiple municipalities and among other counties and other jurisdictions, and how do we work together, and what are there problems with that, or how are the jurisdictions brought together to work as a unit? And then conversely, how do we keep the inabilities of some jurisdictions from holding back those so others can make progress?
Great question, Jeffrey, and thank you for asking it, whoever did. And just to do a quick time check, it's 8:18, right? So we want to be out of here by 8:30ish. So Gary, we know you're smart and you know you're a rambler, so tighten up, yeah? Okay. Not you're giving us lots of information, but I'm just saying if we got 10 more questions, we need 30 seconds each. And I know you're an expert, and it's a disservice to your craft as a civil engineer, but is that all right?
Let me answer that if I can, Gary, and then just correct me if I'm wrong. So we've heard a lot of the history this evening, and a lot of it seems like, yeah, we know there's a problem and nothing's being done about it. But I do want you all to know that Oakland County and all of your communities, Oak Park and the surrounding communities, do work collaboratively as much as possible and have been for a very long time. And the fact that you buy water from Gliwa through Saukwa is one way. There are, the George W. Kuhn Drainage District is another way to share costs among the communities. And so there are definitely ways to plan for the future, to do big projects that span multiple jurisdictions and communities. You could set up another drainage district. You can make sewer infrastructure repairs within a drainage district. And it's just a legal way under the Michigan Drain Code, which is kind of an archaic code, but it does allow for cost sharing and for transparency and for multiple communities to work together to do those types of projects. And so I want you to know our office is always looking for ways to improve. We recognize that, the system was built to serve a certain type of storm back in the day and certain, personal habits of using water. And the storms now, as you know, and you saw this summer, we all saw, they are just coming way more frequently and they're way more intense. And, from what we're seeing, that's not going to stop. So we definitely need to take Gary's 3 suggestions into consideration. All of them are very costly, but the timing is right now with all of the federal influx of dollars to be able to offset that cost and get some things done. So your county commissioner, your water resources commissioner, and I'm sure your local officials are all, going to be advocating for that funding for you. And then we also put out a lot of public education out of our office about what you can do in your own home to protect from basement backups. And Gary talked a little bit about this. A backflow preventer is a great investment for a property, especially if you're a low-lying property in an area that, if you flooded before, it might be something to just have a plumber evaluate your home and see what you can do. We don't mean to put this on you, but honestly, you're the ones that are paying for the infrastructure too. So you also want to make sure that you have proper insurance. You want to make sure that you have a specific rider for basement backups on your insurance policy. If you have standard homeowners insurance and did not ask for additional coverage or the exception to the basement backup exclusion, all this insurance talk, They will normally not give you coverage for that unless you ask for it. So you should all ask for it. And after 2014, I asked for it, and it was an extra, I think, $50 a year to give me $20,000 of coverage in my basement. So it is affordable, and shop around and make sure you have that just in case. Also, Gary said, use less water, particularly if it's a heavy rain. Don't be doing laundry. Try to just do every little thing you can. Invest in that green infrastructure. It'll save you hopefully money on your stormwater fees on your bill as well. And also, every little thing that we can do together hopefully will reduce the load to the system. So we can share our public education materials too with you. I can send them over just so you have them. We kind of have our tips and advice from our office, seeing what we see every day, what we would do in our own homes. So I hope that would be helpful.
Sandy, did you have a question?
Yeah, I've been waiting for a while, so I had to keep remembering what I was going to do. It's been passed over 5 times already. Okay, I have one question, and that one's back to it's regarding what Kelsey just said, so forgive me. I'm trying to put this in layman's terms because I still don't understand this on the water bill. Talking about the runoff, this water comes out of the sky, it comes onto my lawn, it comes into my neighbor's lawn. How in the world is this being calculated? Because the way it was explained to me does not make any sense. How are you going to go ahead and charge me one fee and my neighbor next to me with the same size lot, 2 different dollar amounts? It doesn't make sense. And in a short answer, how's that being done?
So it is based on the amount of surface area in your lot. So it could be the size of your home, that the water runs off of. If it's being absorbed and not going into the system, you're going to pay less. So if you have the same size lot, but your neighbor has more grass, they could possibly pay less. It's kind of an engineering formula. It's a calculation. But the city of Oak Park, you should be able to ask for it and see exactly how they're calculating it too. It should be pretty transparent about exactly how you're being charged.
So I can go talk to the city and ask them, and they can go ahead and let me know how that's being done.
Yep.
And
okay.
Gary, tell me if I'm wrong, but this is that geospatial drone thing, right? So Sandy, what happened is a drone came over your house and everyone else's house, took a picture and said, Sandy's got a 2-car garage, a 1,200 square foot house, and a driveway that's 30 feet long. Crunching numbers, math, his bill's $34 a month. But Ziggy has an 1,100 square foot house and a 2-car garage, but he's got a carport that's paved, and he's got a driveway that's 30 feet long. But carports soak up more water than not, and so whatever, do the math, and Ziggy's is $32, as he said at the beginning of the meeting. So it was a picture taken by a drone, and then also using data from like the government about knowing how big your lot is and how big your house is and all the deed stuff to then say that's how much water will not soak in. You're paying for the fact that water will not soak into your lawn, like Kelsey said. Is that right, Gary? What'd I get wrong?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if Oak Park did use a drone to go out and look for things like that, but I know that type of work is being done across the state and country, things of that nature, because the images are good enough these days where it could be quickly calculated by coming up with the actual surface area of impervious surface, which would be concrete, roofs, driveway, which is 100% runoff versus lawn area, which is typically only about 20% runoff. So I guess that's my description I gave earlier, like a parking lot versus a soccer field. It's going to be a night and day difference. The parking lot will have 5 times the runoff in a soccer field will.
Okay, I get that.
Yeah.
All right, I got to go back to what Kelsey said. You're talking to the insurance company about the flood coverage. And I talked to my State Farm insurance company back when this first happened. We are not in a flood zone. There is no coverage available where I'm at. They won't cover it. I already checked. Doesn't matter what I put on her, what I want to get on her. We are not in a flood zone.
Yeah, it's different than, so overland flooding and then there's basement backup flooding. So you want coverage for any water that could come up your floor drain, for example. Not necessarily, they may not give you flood protection if you're not in a flood prone, but that would be water coming in through like, you know, the side of your basement window, as opposed to the combined sewage is what you really want protection from, that combined sewage backing up. So it is different. So you might want to get another opinion on that answer.
So it's combined sewage then, not just flood zone.
Correct. Yep. Combined sewage backup. Yep.
Right. FEMA has flood insurance, which is overland flood insurance. This is a part of your homeowner's insurance that protects you against stuff coming up through the pipes. Completely different thing.
Yeah,
you don't have to be in a flood zone because you're underneath the ground that it's coming up. So.
Yeah, we lost quite a bit and we applied to FEMA and FEMA was absolutely useless, totally useless. They were not giving out anything at all, nothing.
Well, yeah, thank you, Kelsey and Jim and Gary and Charlie for all being here to field these questions and the very long discussion about water. I know we have a couple more things to do this evening. Sam has a bit he'd like to say about water bills, not necessarily like related, but kind of it's water, it's thematic.
Are you saying that Kelsey and Jim and Gary should stay on for that, or that's a?
I mean, Sam, what do you think?
I was just trying to figure out when to say my kudos to them, so I can.
Well, if it's, I mean, if it's a water bill related thing, there's a chance we could.
It's a municipal issue.
So.
Yeah,
it's a municipal issue, not a county issue.
So
okay, all right.
In which case,
well then. Okay.
Our mayor isn't here. I don't believe. Is that correct? Our mayor is not here?
No, Marion is not present.
Well, the following is a 2-minute steering committee editorial seeking input from the group at large. The driving sentiment behind shifting water bills to monthly is admirable and worthwhile. There are the benefits of finding leaks early and allowing a vehicle for dispensing city messaging. But might there be more effective use of funds, and is it the right program? We posit that monthly bills should be re-examined. Historically, bills have been quarterly and in postcard form because it is cheap. Shifting to monthly does not reduce the bill, but simply spreads it out at significant ongoing expense to the city, noted as $70,000 annually. Customers are not, in fact, reducing their costs. At present, the system allows customers to create payment plans. Might those monies be better spent elsewhere? For example, establishing a revolving loan fund for those that need short-term loans, or outright awards, or class and budgeting, or infrastructure improvements that increase efficiencies. For example, large-scale water retention projects to reduce runoff. While the money saved might not be enough for a major project, it would likely be enough for payments on a long-term loan for a major project. Speaking in rough numbers, $600,000 borrowed over 20 years at 5% costs just over $60,000 annually. Could that have an impact on efficiencies? What might the engineering team think of a possible $600,000 project? We have no expertise in these matters, but cannot help but think that while admirable in intent, there may be better uses for the funds. What do our other neighbors think of this concept?
Sylvia seems supportive. Thoughts?
I miss only paying my bill quarterly. I think it's a pain in the butt to have to pay it every month now.
I agree. I mean, I'm grateful that the cost has gone down from what it seemed like it was going to be, but at the same time, it's easier to make less payments.
Well, and no one from the administration is here tonight to hear this. Generally, the mayor is here with us. But do other folks other folks weigh in on this concept of shifting to monthly bills?
I was very grateful because just when we shifted to monthly bills, I had a leak. And I wouldn't have known about it for 2 more months. If there were a way for us to monitor our water usage from our phones, then I wouldn't mind.
I think you can on the city's website.
There's something for this. And the city leadership just had the water town hall on Monday, and they talked about this, and I just learned. Lorraine, if you go look at your water meter, there's a little red triangle.
Right.
And, yep. So if that's moving at all, that'll tell you there's a leak. And if it's spinning a lot.
Trust me, I've learned that. And
Okay.
And I check it regularly now, but I didn't know it. And when I got my bill in August and I looked at the number of units, I had 13 units for 1 month, whereas I've been having 9 units for 3 months. I called the city and they were so amazing. They came right the next day and they said, you have a leak, and they identified where the leak was, but I wouldn't have known to do that. So for me, it worked out very well to switch to monthly.
And Lorraine, you said the 13 units for 1 month versus 9 for 3 months. A unit, also from the water town hall we had on Monday, a unit is 742 gallons.
Yep.
So that's a lot of water, Lorraine. So good catch, right? That's cool. I think also the mindset. Oh, sorry, Lorraine.
No, I was just going to say it was a leaky toilet that was in the basement that wasn't making any noise. I had no way to know that it was leaking.
In the town hall, they said if you got a toilet in the basement, in the laundry room or something, check it like regularly, because that's where it gets people. And then you got $1,000 water bill and you're just up the creek. Because
the little triangle was a wonderful clue. I didn't know to do that. So now I watch it very regularly.
I know one thing too that folks were saying about the monthly, at least on that town hall. One of the reasonings behind it was that way people will have less sticker shock, right? Because what I think the city heard is people were saying, I have a $300 bill all of a sudden. I don't plan 3 months ahead for something like a water bill. So now this is a sudden sticker shock kind of thing, and oof, I'd rather pay $100 a month that I know about than $300 once a quarter that I forget about. That was at least their reasoning. But Sam, also to what you were saying, I'm gonna be sure to, when I check in with Eric, the city manager, and the mayor at least twice a week. So next time I talk to him, I'll make sure I mention that. Or if you want to email that to me, I can also share it with them.
I can do that, Charlie.
Thanks. Yeah. And is now okay for me to give plaudits to everyone, Jeffrey?
You do.
Okay. First, Evelyn, it's good to see you. It's been a minute. I'm so happy you're on here. I don't know if you're still on here, but Evelyn, great to see you. Oh, okay. Thanks, Ryan. But I think we should all count ourselves lucky to have Jim Nash as our Water Resource Commissioner, because just if we think before he was Water Resource Commissioner to now, it's night and day. Jim is truly a thought leader. He's someone who's talking about environmental sustainability, not just from like a feel-good thing, which is worthy in and of itself, but I mean, he started his spiel talking about climate change, and then Gary used his knowledge and power to tell us how much it costs and how real it is. So the team they got is top level, and like they're worth it. And also I'll just tell you all, just from a county commission perspective, I talked to Kelsey, especially on this $2 million water infrastructure thing we've been working on, and some projects for Royal Oak Township for water. I mean, Kelsey is great. She knows what she's doing. Like that. And also just to tell you, these folks don't have to know what they're doing to get a job, right? There are other saying that say that other water systems, other places, not you, Gary, but other places hire civil engineers that phone it in. But that's not Gary, because Gary is talking to y'all at 8:30 on a work night. Kelsey is talking to y'all. She got a baby in the other room, right? Like, this is a work night for these people, and they're staying on here for you, and they don't have to do that, and other places don't do that. And they also gave it to you straight, right? They said, yo, it's expensive and it sucks, and we agree it's broken. And they told you why and how to fix it. So thank you, Gary. Thank you, Jim, and thank you, Kelsey.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining us. And
Glad to do it. This is what we want to do. We want to make sure everybody understands what we're doing. So we're happy to do this anytime. If you ever have any more questions, let us know. We're happy, that's what we're here for, is answer questions. I agree. I have the best team I ever worked with in my life. So Oakland County is well served.
you guys don't have to stick around for the last, but we have a little thing on elections, which is just kind of announcement-y. So feel free if you don't have
I know.
interest.
Thanks for having us.
Take care, everybody.
Take care.
Thanks for having us.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Sam, I think if you forward the editorial to the city, and like we can continue to discuss this too as a neighborhood, I'm sure there'll be more feelings too as we go on further with the monthly situation. The last bit was about voting, and we do have an election coming up in November. You can request absentee ballots if you're not able to go or don't want to go in person online or at the city hall. I did one actually online the other day because I didn't realize that was an option. So I was grateful for that reminder from Sam. We'll be electing mayor and 2 council people and voting on 2 proposals. That information, I believe, was emailed out. October 18th is the last day to register to vote in any manner other than in person. So please vote. It's important. It might not seem like it, but it is. And Marion isn't running unopposed, so there are multiple people running for the mayor position. She's not here. Nobody's here to see for himself, but not they could, so you don't allow that. So all those dates were in the email. Please read that too. Anything else from anyone?
Thank you, Jeffrey. Thank you, Sam.
Yeah.
And somebody said in the chat, right?
There's not much in there, but okay.
And we'll probably be talking about October 16th and sending out an email regarding that. So keep your eye on
And
your
everyone knows about the Oak Park Film Fest. It starts this weekend.
Yes. So if you've got nothing going on, there's a red carpet event on Friday, tomorrow.
5:30, a dog and pony show.
It's a full weekend of activities. So check out Facebook or your email and see the details there.
Yep. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
I think.